This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program Spotlight now, we bring you a discussion on spreading awareness about Census 2021. The participants are Shekhar Iyer, political analyst, and Nilabh Srivastav, journalist.
The exercise for the Census 2021, we can very well say that the ball is now set rolling. The exercise is scheduled to begin from April 1 now. This will be along with the National Population Register. And this is a mammoth task because to do a census for a country of billion plus population, about 125 crore Indians, exercise will also entail involvement of hundreds and thousands of government officials, state machinery, authorities at the center. Also, we know that this time the census will be done not on a paper or a pen mode, but on an app. This will be absolutely electronic. So I believe this is a reason that has been used so that the data collection is seamless, sans any errors, and also the government's intention, as what we hear from the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, when he says that this data will help the government in ensuring the government schemes and welfare schemes as to how to go about it. So this is the entire scheme of the census. Mr. Iyer, we are now going ahead with this just the next month now. So tell us about the entire process. What does it entail, and does this also involve the NPR also, the National Population Register?
Well, the previous time we are going to see both National Population Register as well as the Census 2021 are going to start simultaneously. And this exercise, though it is called Census 2021, it is starting from April 1st of this year, and this is going to be done in two phases. Now, the first phase is actually the work of house listing or housing census, counting the number of houses all over the country, which will be from April to September. Then in the second phase, the enumeration of the population will be done. On the basis of the houses that have been enumerated, population residing in these houses will be undertaken from February 9th to February 28th of 2021, and the reference moment will be as on March 1st, what is the situation next year. Now, for the snowbound areas in Jammu Kashmir, Himachal and Uttarakhand, the reference date will be October 1st, 2020. Now, we all know that census exercise has a history of more than 130 years. And this is a reliable, time-tested exercise. Basic idea is to get a lot of statistics about our demography, about the economic profile of our people, what are the improvements that have happened, and other social economic indicators that can be collated on the basis of this information. And this time, this is going to be done along with the National Population Register. Now, National Population Register is a register of usual residents. Now, usual resident is actually defined under the Citizenship Act of 1955 and subsequently under the Citizenship Rules of 2003. Now, who is a usual resident? Usual resident is a person or persons who are living in a particular locality for the last 6 months and intend to live for the next 6 months. Basically, to get more detailed demographic profile of a particular locality. Now, the whole idea is, in the second NPR exercise, which will go along with the census exercise, is to find out who are the usual resident, their name, their relationship to the head of the household, then their father's name, mother's name. In all, if you see, for the census exercise, they have kept some 34 questions. And for NPR, there are 14 questions. Nilabh, you mentioned that they are this time introducing an app. Previously, you had people going house to house, filling up the forms and taking time. But this time, they will ask questions and simply. Both the exercises are a voluntary exercise. There is no documents are asked or anything. On the basis of whatever the respondents give, that is recorded. There is no documents to be asked, no certificates required, no photocopy, nothing. The people come, and this is such an elaborate exercise. For some time, we have seen the Census Commissioner's office has been preparing lot of government servants, local teachers and other voluntary agencies who are involved in providing the manpower to conduct this exercise. Now, this exercise is a massive exercise, and on the basis of this, we not only know what is the total population of our country, but other details as to whether how many of us are two-wheeler owners, how many of us have a four-wheeler owner, do we have fridge at home, do we have internet connectivity. All these details come out from the census. Importance of this exercise is whatever statistics is collected, that statistics goes into a lot of decision making. Our country today faces a situation where our resources are not plenty. We have very limited resources, and we want to use those limited resources for the welfare of our people. the most needy ones get it. Now, this kind of statistics tells us what is the areas of development, which are the areas of good development, which are the areas that have not yet been developed, that need more attention. These statistics provide our planners with the necessary material to actually do a lot of planning in terms of development process.
Mr. Iyer, there was recently the conference of the directors of census. Different states come together. If I remember correctly, some states gave a presentation to the Union Home Ministry because that is the ministry that is nodal for this work. And some others will also give a presentation about the unique challenges and unique pluses, points that they have by way of geography, by way of the urban conglomeration that they have. So what kind of an exercise or a training or probably a pre-training kind of a goes into these government paraphernalia or the machinery?
Though these exercises, NPR as well as census, are undertaken simultaneously, database that is generated are different. Now, in the case of NPR, it is usually about the demographic information, whether you are a resident and how long you have been here, etc., etc. Now, in the case of census, there is more information on the demography. In the sense, there is a lot about economic activity, then about literacy and education levels, about housing and household amenities, and these are other details. Now, the training part is actually how to pose these questions, and depending on the responses, how to feed using this app. Because these all go to a central data system, which is finally things are collated. Because previously it was all hand documentation. So it was even more massive exercise because the enumerators would go around collecting the data, they would come back, feed to their computers, and in turn they would be further vetted and then major conclusions drawn. But this time with the app, so we are getting more digitalized in collecting information. That's a thing. And a lot of it is dependent on how we respond to the questions that are put to us. So these enumerators are told the framing of questions and in trying to assess the quality of information that comes from these enumeration.
Does this also, Mr. Iyer, entail the change in probably the geographical limits of a district or a state? Or do we also see that exercise of delimitation? Is this also encapsulated or recorded in the census process?
Delimitation is a separate exercise when it comes to the delimitation of constituency, but it is based on the census. Last census was started in 2010 and completed by 2011, and NPR exercise started in 2010 and it was finally updated by 2015. And this was done in the previous UPA government, and the same thing is being here. And unfortunately, a lot of controversy got generated, political or otherwise, over, mix up over this and the Citizenship Amendment Act, which is a completely different thing. NPR is not about citizenship. It is pure recording of information. You may be Indian citizen, you may be foreign citizen. Just to find out who are living in a particular locality, we have to understand is when you get to idea of the population profile, and we can also look at what are the other things that are necessary, because some areas are very densely populated. Some areas where the ownership issue is also very important. How many of them are living in their own house? How many of them living on their own flats? How many of them are living in rented accommodation? All these details also tells you about, say, if you're looking at in terms of framing a housing policy. So you can use this data to find out, okay, in a particular state, in a particular area, this is the profile. These are the issues. Then you can also develop information regarding the connectivity issues, water issue, sanitation issue. Now, these are things that can come out from this information. And this also tells you about the education level. What is the spread of literacy? What is the spread of internet literacy? Because this time questions will also be asked about internet access. Then the use of domestic appliances. Say, the data you will get from a place like Delhi. Now, Delhi is a place because of the weather condition. You will find ACs even in one of whom we consider to be Juggi Jhopdi or even clusters. You find these days AC has made its way because of the weather condition. Similarly, the use of washing machines. So many other details that tells you how our people are living, in what conditions they are living, what more needs to be done. And this exercise requires an active participation by the people. If you remember, generally before the start of the exercise, government comes out with appeals because we have to cooperate in a big way with this.
For awareness.
This is actually, I will say, a sort of a festival in the sense, enumerators come, go door to door, sit down, they take your time, and we have to provide that cooperation because whatever is being collected is in our overall interest.
As we remember that the government has initiated a lot of schemes. Not only this government, even the previous governments, they talk about, when we talk about an Ujjwala Yojana where you have to provide LPG gas connections so that there is no fossil fuel based fuel now in the country for cooking because that is not healthy. Maybe it is about giving water connectivity to the households or the electricity mission that the government is working on. So this all hard data gives you the actionable points as to where you have to concentrate your energies and where exactly is the focus in the thrust area. You talked about the NPR. This is also in an extension linked to the NRC exercise, what we saw in Assam happening, and also the Citizenship Amendment Act. There are a lot of confusions, there are a lot of doubts, and the government has time and again came out with awareness messages, statements saying that no, all these things are not linked, they are independent of each other. Is the NRC also linked to NPR, or what is the status of the census operations vis-a-vis NPR and NRC?
Right now, there is no question of an NRC. That has been clarified by the Prime Minister, that has been clarified by the Home Minister. NRC is a completely different thing. That is the National Register of Citizens. It is not connected with the exercise. What we are going to see is simultaneous collection of details for national NPR, which is already a thing which was introduced in 2010, and the other is the census. Now, census, as I told you, we do it every 10 years. And so-called political controversies that were sought to be raised on mix-up of these issues is that whether this NPR will lead to some citizenship purging act or not at all, because completely different, because the question of determining citizenship is purely under the Citizenship Act, which has nothing to do with NPR or the census exercise. NPR, as I told you, it only contains the demographic information. I mean, who are the usual residents. Now, for census, more details are required. As I said, more details about the demography, and that includes economic activity, literacy and education, housing and other amenities. Now, this is necessary because we consider the census is the basis for reviewing the country's progress in the past 10 years. Because if the reference point is last census was 2011 and what has happened in, because by the time they are published, that will be 2021. Now, this is basically also monitoring the various schemes that the government has undertaken over the years, whether it is Ujjwala scheme or, households, how many of them have electricity. And we are not talking of cities. This is going to go to every village. This will tell you exactly what is the penetration of electricity. Of course, what is the penetration of this BharatNet, internet? Because the government's desire is that all villages should be linked by internet. So we need to know what exactly has happened in the last 10 years, how the quality of life is improved, and whether there has been an ease of living. Now, these kind of answers to these questions will come from the data that is generated. And when the data are analyzed, it throws up all this information about economic activity, literacy, education, housing and housing amenities, urbanization, fertility and mortality rates, and also scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, what is their welfare, then about the language being spoken, about the religion, then you have migration and disability, so many other things, because today there is a lot of population which is also moving. They are moving to different towns and cities. All these patterns of economic activity, those things can be easily made out from the data collected.
As you said that NPR will determine those people who are either living from 6 months at a place or propose to live at. So even the people who are migrating are not at disadvantage.
Nobody is at a disadvantage because this is purely gathering an information. And this is being done on a voluntary basis because when the enumerator comes and asks you information, it is whatever information you provide to the best of your abilities and to the best of your knowledge, that is going to be taken.
And that is going to be recorded.
And what is important is this information collected will also be source of potable water, energy, irrigation, whether somebody is living in a thatched house or a concrete house. This kind of details are very important for our planners. And we must remember that this is the development exercise, an exercise for bettering the development process.
So data will be taking from the very basic to the most important aspects, and then as we said that this will be about an individual to a community to a locality and up to a district and a state level. Thank you very much, Mr. Iyer.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on spreading awareness about Census 2021. The participants were Shekhar Iyer, political analyst, and Nilabh Srivastav, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You can also follow us on the News on AIR app for updates. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.